Thank you for coming in today.
Can I say something if I may at this time, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Doug. Is it Doug?
To Brian May, thank you for all you've done lately for the river in terms of the new launching pad and for Drayton Theater. I was going to drop by personally, but I want to thank you publicly. Thank you.
All right. Mike Morris, MP for Kitchener Center. Is he? Mike, welcome. All right. We just had a nice chat about Kitchener. Mayor David Bradley, County of Brant, is here. Bailey, sorry. I'm thinking of Bob Bailey from Johnny Dollar. Go ahead. Thank you, David. And again, welcome. Nice to see you. We've got Mayor Chris Garris from the Township of Amherst or online. This is like being air traffic controller. All right. Angela Coleman, Conservation Ontario. Angela, welcome. Thanks for coming down from Ottawa. And we have an old hand here out here, Alan Dale, Chair of the Lake Erie Region Source Protection Committee. Welcome, Alan. Appreciate it. Stacy Stallman of KPMG. Everybody, thank you for. And we also today we have Joe Farwell, and we were going to have Dwight Boyd, but he couldn't make it in today. They're recent retirees from the GRCA who have been supporting us through the transitions and so forth, and we really appreciate the corporate memory and the extra support they give us. And welcome, Joe. You want to, everybody, I guess everybody knows you, right? All right, thank you. Okay, so we also today being, sorry. Marcus, okay. So, okay. So today we've got some past members who have come here and they've completed their terms on the board. What we're going to do for those folks who are here in person, we'd, as I state your name, we'd like you to come to the front. We've got a little picture of me we'd like to give you. Unfortunately, initially, Marcus Adili from Hamilton, I believe, was going to be here, and he couldn't make it. Is he online? He's not here. All right. So we're going to move. Is Joan here? She's online, attending virtually.
Yes.
So you get your picture today. I'm going to recognize you, though, Joan. Joan was appointed to the board in 2018, representing the County of Brant. Thank you, Joan, for your service and for joining us virtually today. We'll be sending Joan's plaque home with our new County of Brant member, David Miller. All right. Good to see you, Joan. All right.
Thanks, Chris. It was my pleasure to be on the board and work with the excellent staff and board members who are all dedicated to our watershed.
Thanks, Joan. Appreciate it. Helen is not here. Is she online? Okay. Everybody knows Helen Jowett, of course, from the Region of Waterloo. Was our past chair for 5 years, former Region of Waterloo councillor and a long-term member of the GRCA. We thank her in absentia for her work. I know Ian is here. Ian McCrae. Ian was an engaged member of the board representing Center Wellington from 2018 to 2022. Thank you, Ian, for the service at the GRCA. Thanks, Ian. Appreciate it. Catherine McGarry is not here or online, I believe. So we want to thank her for her service. She was a board member from 2018 until 2022, representing the Region of Waterloo in the city of Cambridge. Catherine's support to the GRCA goes back to her days as an MPP prior to her appointment to the board. And again, we thank her. Jane Mitchell. Jane is also a past chair of the board and was a member of the GRC since 2003 until 2022. So that's quite a long-term commitment there. She was representative of the region of Waterloo, and she was a councillor at the city of Waterloo. Thank you, Jane, for 20 years support of the GRCA. We're going to have a lot of pictures left over. Joe Noack. Is Joe welcome, sir? Joe is a member of the board from 2014 until 2022, representing the region of Waterloo in the township of Wellesley. Joe, again, thank you for your service. It's been a pleasure to have you on the board. All right. And we have today Richard Carpenter from the city of Brant. He's been on the board from 2018 to 2022, and we appreciated all the work that Richard did while he was here. I think we've got you can still go to Reed's Chocolates, you know. Thank you, Richard. And one of those early hiccups as we transition, I'm sure most of you folks online couldn't hear that. So going forward, we'll put people's on mics, and I apologize for that. Thank you. Okay, so now we have Warren Stoke. Warren, welcome. If we're going to, if people want to say a few words, we're going to make sure they're at a mic so everybody can hear them. Warren has been a longtime supporter of the GRCA and was an active member of the board of directors representing the citizens of the region of Waterloo from 2010 to the end of 2022. Thank you, Warren, for your service and your willingness to share your knowledge of the history and geography of the Grand River watershed. And for those who were here or weren't here at the end of each meeting, we had other business and we had to leave that as a standing item on the agenda because Warren always had some great words of wisdom for us. So you'll be sorely missed. And there's the mic, and the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This sort of marks the end of an era for me personally. With my first exposure to the Grand River Conservation Area was 1961, October, on a field trip, grade 11 field trip to Rockwood in the conservation area. I'm not even sure it was officially a conservation area at the time. But anyway, we were there to see the old Harris Mill that was still standing. It burned Halloween that year. We were the last group of students, I think, to actually see it in place. But we went there mainly to spelunk, to explore the caves at Rockwood. And because it was a physical geography trip, the potholes that were created by the last ice age that moved through the area. So it was really special, but it really captured for me what the Grand River Conservation Authority is all about, of having these wonderful areas that we should cherish. And I know that we people sitting around the board and over the years have cherished these facilities. I went on to study geography at Wilfrid Laurier, Waterloo Lutheran University, and then became a teacher for 30 years. I did field trips in the watershed, but to the Rockwood area in particular to study the glacial features. And then when I retired in 1999, I had a chance to join the Heritage Working Group of the GRCA, and we were the ones that put on those. Remember, Bruce, I think you were to most of them, the Heritage Day workshops across the watershed. Over 200 people attended most of them every year, and it was really a pleasure to serve on that committee. And then I was lucky enough to join in 2010. Was it 2010, Chris, that
Yes,
joined the board of the GRCA, and that was special for me as well, because it allowed me to share my knowledge with the people in the watershed. But also I've been doing bus tours up and down the watershed, Grand Villages North, Grand Villages South, and those have been special events for me too. So I really appreciate the work that the staff has done over the years. I go back as far as Jim Bauer, George Stormont, Ralph Beaumont, and wonderful people. And we have as well very wonderful people today who are doing a lot of work on the behalf of the 600,000+ or million people in the watershed each year. And without your work and hard work and dedication, it wouldn't be the same. So I will still be at your back, supporting you. And every time I get a chance to talk to a politician, and we got 3 of them here today. Okay, they're very good. If you can talk to them at any time. So I'm going to be writing letters and supporting the work of the GRCA, and we'll see what we can do. But thank you very, very much for the pleasure to be with this group for this long a time. Thank you.
well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Warren. Appreciate all the work you've done. Just a bit of perspective, when he was crawling around Rockwood, JFK was in office. So there's some other folks we'd like to recognize for their service who were unable to attend today. Les Armstrong was a member from 2010 to Jane. All right, we stop the presses. Jane, welcome. No sitting. We recognize you as a passport and a member since 2003. We have a little gift for you here, please.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And it's nice to be back here in the boardroom. It's good. And of course, the GRCA does so much good work. It's great. This morning before I left, my daughter was busy looking up fishing licenses to see what to do in the summer. So, you know, we're very important. And of course, I'm out of breath. That's my apologies. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, Jane. Nice to see you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
So carrying on with a few more past members here, we had Bernie Corbett, member since 2015 to 2022. Kathy Downer from Guelph, 2021 to 2022. Michael Harris, 2018 to 2022. Jeff Lorenz, 2010 to 2022. Bruce Whale, 2018 to 2022. And finally, Paul Bell was a member who, as most everyone knows, recently passed. He was an excellent member of the board. He was just an all-around great human being. We want to recognize him for his service. And it's a very sad time, of course, there. Bob's service, we're going to send him a recognition gift sent to his family and along with our condolences. So it's good memories of Bob Bell. So we want to thank past board members for all their hard work and dedication throughout their years of service. The last term members supported our staff through all the regulatory changes over the past few years, not to mention a global pandemic. It's been a bit of a whirlwind term, and we thank all of you for the support. We wish you all the best in future. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you for coming down here. And we're always here if you want to come and say hello, except Warren. Okay. So we're going to get into a real meeting now, if you're all right with that, and we'll press on. So just some notes from the chair here. On February 22nd, Samantha and I attended the flood warning emergency planning meeting hosted by the GRCA. The meeting was very well attended by watershed flood and emergency coordinators and other provincial and federal partners. This biannual meeting covered great information about our flood warning system and emergency preparedness coordination, and included a presentation from Environment Canada on projections for hydroclimate variables of the Grand River Basin. Great work from the GRCA and for the staff for hosting. And this is a very important meeting. And we had some people come from far and wide to see that meeting, even in the hybrid thing. So it's well attended, and that fundamentally is who we are. So it's a good meeting, and happy to have the staff doing all the great work on that. Also on February 22nd, thank you to Councillor Mike Devine, one of our Region of Waterloo members, for attending the federal funding announcement related to the Cambridge to Paris Rail Trail Rehabilitation Project being undertaken by the city of Cambridge. So good work on that. On February 6th, staff presented the draft budget to Wellington North Council and will continue to give presentations to municipalities as requested. On February 2nd, Samantha joined MPP Mike Harris and others for a pre-budget consultation meeting for the provincial budget, presenting on behalf of the GRCA. And thank you for taking the time out to do that, Samantha. And meetings with our participating municipalities regarding Category 2 programs and services are ongoing. And staff have begun meeting with adjacent conservation authorities along with municipal staff in areas of shared jurisdiction. And that, for some of those who know and some of those who don't know, what's happened with the regulatory changes at a very high, very simplistic level, to give you a bit of the context. The way things used to work, if the GRCA was providing services to municipalities, it would go on the levy and off we'd go and you'd have the budgets. But with some of the shifts, we now have to divide our budget into 3 components. And one of them is mandatory services, which you can put on the levy. The second is going to be things where you're going to need an MOU with the municipality. So if we were out there planting trees for you, in the old days, we could just put it on the levy. But now we're going to have to go out to, we have 38 municipalities in the watershed and grouping of 22. We're going to have to sign an MOU with each of these, and that's going to be pretty complicated. So our staff have a lot of work to do getting out there. And the third category is discretionary items that have to be self-funded. So I just thought I'd throw that context out there because people hear a lot about the regulatory changes and a lot of it, but from a budgetary perspective and from relationships with our municipalities, the game has changed a little bit. But, you know, having MOUs and face-to-faces with the municipalities is not a bad thing. It's good to keep that relationship going. So a lot of work ahead. Finally, staff are working on a draft version of a management plan for the Niska Land Holdings, and we'll be posting on the GRCA website for public comment in the near future. More information will be prepared for the board as needed. So I have moving right along, going to do a review of the agenda. I have a motion that the agenda for the annual general meeting be approved as circulated. Can I get a mover for that? Moved by Brian, seconded by John. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Hearing and seeing none. Minutes of the previous meeting. Motion that the minutes of the general membership meeting of January 27th, 2023 be approved as circulated. Moved by Pam, seconded by Sean. All in favor? That is carried. Sorry. Is that a question? Okay. Yeah, so just a bit of protocol. I can't see everybody all the time. So if you do have a question or something, please just speak up. I just may miss you. All right, so business arising from previous minutes. I know that sent a thrill up Warren's. Okay. Correspondence. So I have a motion that correspondence from Halton Region regarding their 2023 budget direction and from Bev McIntyre regarding the 2023 Guelph Lake seasonal campsite fees and related correspondence from the staff be received as information. I'll put that on the floor. Moved by Sue, seconded by John. Comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Moving into reports. GRCA fee policy schedule 2. Motion that the Grand River Conservation Authority fee schedule 2 conservation areas be approved and amended and implemented effective February 24th, 2023. Moved by Brian, seconded by Lisa. Comments or questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, just I had no issue with where the fees were moving, but it might be helpful in future years if we show the prior year fees. So there's a comparison to be made by board members if necessary.
Karen?
Through you, Chair White. Thank you for that feedback. When we did update the actual fee chart, I think at the December meeting, we did provide the comparison. And this was one that was missed and it was just the one rate. So we didn't, but that's certainly helpful feedback that we'll incorporate in the future for any updates.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank-
staff have that, John. Great.
Thank you.
Anything further? Call the question.
No.
All in favor? Go ahead, John. Oh, all in favor. There we go. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Grand River Notification Agreement Renewal Motion that the Chair of the Grand River Conservation Authority be authorized to sign the renewal of the Grand River Notification Agreement. Moved by Jerry, seconded by Bruce Banbury. Any comments or questions? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Minutes of the GRCA Board Composition Review Committee. Motion that the minutes of the GRCA Board Composition Review Committee held on February 10th, 2023 be received as information. Moved by Sue, seconded by Alex. And before I call the question, so we had our initial meeting on the board composition, and we'll be having, it's going to be a bit of a process, so we'll be working our way through that, just so everybody's aware of that. So is there any comments or questions? Go ahead, Dan. No, you're not Dan. David?
Okay, thank you. Maybe it's a simple question. Well, it is a simple question. When you talk about the population-based method, are you referring, does that method, as far as CAs go, refer to the population of the municipality as a whole, or are we talking about the population of the municipality that resides in the watershed?
Through you, Chair White, it speaks to the population of the municipality in the watershed. So we actually received that information from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, who gets it from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. So we do already get that information for other reasons, the weighted vote for today, like that with related to the levy. And that's what would be applied for that population-based method.
Okay, thank you. That's, I'm glad to hear that, because it seems the philosophy, and I know you said it was the initial meeting, so I think this, we're going to see more of this coming up in the future. So, but the philosophy seems to me in the past to be those who pay, play, right? And I support that, because that's just, I think that's the fairest way. But again, I guess we'll see this coming up again in the future. So thank you.
Yeah, so there are a couple of formulas on this, right? One of them is population, one of them is assessment. We have an order in council, which is different because of the size of the watershed. And so there's a bunch of complexities at play here. Bottom line, for a budget perspective, though, the weighted vote is parsed out and is representative, but we do have a bit of a road ahead of us. Any further comments or questions? I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Current watershed conditions. Motion that the report number GM 022318 current watershed conditions as of February 14th, 2023 be received as information. Moved by Pam, seconded by Sue. Comments or questions? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Afforestation services for spring 2023. Motion that the Grand River Conservation Authority award the 2023 contract for machine planting for seedlings to Bartman Woodlands Limited in the amount of $14,405 excluding taxes, and a total budget of $16,565.75 excluding taxes be approved, and that the Grand River Conservation Authority award the 2023 contract for hand planting for seedlings to Brinkman and Associates in the amount of $111,105 excluding taxes, and a budget total of $127,770.75 excluding taxes be approved, and that the Grand River Conservation Authority award the 2023 contract for hand planting for tall stock to Taramac Reforestation Incorporated in the amount of $39,975 excluding taxes, for a total budget of $45,971.25 excluding taxes be approved. All right. So can I get a mover for that, please? Moved by Guy, seconded by Mike. Okay, I'm going to put it on the floor. Seconded by Pam. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. Through this process, which is great, by the way, wonderful. How many trees are being planted? I don't see that here.
I don't know if we have an exact number for you here today.
Approximate would be good.
A whole bunch.
Well, that's not an answer. Sorry.
I just, do we have a?
I see that.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'll just
Sorry.
get Nathan to come up and answer those questions.
Thank you.
He's got a bit of time when he gets to the mic to think it through.
Oh, for sure, for sure. We will.
Well, if we don't have the number, we can get it there.
It's not on yet, okay. It's around 100,000 trees being planted this spring.
100,000. And what variety are these trees?
It's a wide variety of native trees, so, yeah, native conifers like white pine, white spruce, tamarack, and an assortment of native deciduous trees as well, like sugar maple, red oak, black cherry, things like that.
And I assume these are all seedlings?
Not all, most of them are seedlings, but some are taller stock. Like from our nursery, we grow 5 to 6 foot saplings, as well as 2 to 3 foot potted stock and things like that. But the bulk of them are the smaller seedlings.
Okay, thank you for your answer to the question that you didn't expect.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Nate, for the answer. Have I put this on the floor? Okay, it's on the floor. Any further comments or questions? I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Pleased to announce that Dorothy McCabe, the mayor of the city of Waterloo, has joined us virtually. Dorothy, welcome. Is she up there some, like, why can't I see who's up there? Oh, bottom right. There you are. Welcome, Dorothy. Can she hear us? It's a scary thought. Anyway, everybody here knows she's here, so that's all that counts. Can you hear us, Dorothy? Can you tap her on the shoulder?
Sorry, my volume was down. Sorry.
We're just welcoming you. We see you've come on, so welcome virtually to the new mayor of the city of Waterloo.
Thank you so much. Sorry, my volume was down lower than I was.
No
than I
worries.
thought, so appreciate it. Thank you. Sorry, I'm late, joining late.
Well, we appreciate you coming up.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Okay, we're into bureaucratic stuff here. So 11.6, 2023 replacement of tractors purchase. Motion that the Grand River Conservation Authority purchase 2 2023 John Deere model 4052R tractors with a cab and front loader from Premier Equipment in Elmira for a total amount of $149,334.34, excluding HST. A mover for that, moved by Bruce, seconded by Brian. Comments or questions? All in favor? Sorry. I apologize. Was there a question? Go ahead, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought the second one, price-wise, was quite a bit lower as a percentage. 21,000 is nothing to sneeze at. So obviously, they have to meet, you're looking at the highest score based on the criteria, those 4 criteria. Price quotation, conformance to specs, past experience with the manufacturer, location of parts and service facility. How long has the GRCA been using that criteria? And I'm asking because I thought the price quotation of a weighted 40% was on the low side.
Here comes help. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. We've developed this criteria. It's been in use for quite a number of years. And the reason for it is we not only look at the purchase price, but we need this equipment to last for the duration. So we're looking for best value. And so 40%, although is a portion of it, we think it represents what we need it to do, because we also need this equipment to meet the specs of the location it's going to be used in. And a big part of that is we have a very lean fleet, and so we don't have a lot of equipment sitting around. So for these tractors, one's going to go to Pinehurst Conservation Area and one's going to go to Guelph Lake. So that'll be the one tractor there, and we need the lifting capacity to meet it. So conformance to spec, the price, as well as availability of parts and service, and our experience with the manufacturer all play into the evaluation.
I'll just thank you for the response. Okay, I won't get into a debate about that because I think think it should be tweaked, but I'll leave it at that. And thank you for the answer.
Okay, any further comments or questions on the tractor replacement? I will call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 11.7, replacement vehicle purchase motion that the Grand River Conservation Authority purchase 2023 Ford F-150 XL Super Crew 4x4 hybrid half-ton pickup for a total amount of $73,280 excluding HST from Parkway Ford sales. And that the Grand River Conservation Authority purchase 2023 Ford Transit 350 medium roof van at a total cost of $66,495 excluding HST from Parkway Ford Sales Limited, and that the Grand River Conservation Authority purchased 2 Dodge 3500 4x4 pickups for a total amount of $150,818 excluding HST from Blue Mountain Chrysler Limited. Put that on the floor. Moved by Sue, seconded by John. Comments or questions? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 11.8, road site preparation. Motion that the Grand River Conservation Authority award the tender for the 2023 road site preparation and surface treatment to Cornell Construction Limited of Brantford, Ontario, up to the amount of $572,700 excluding HST, and that a total project budget of $630,000 excluding HST be approved. Moved by Pam, Brian. Comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Cash and investments. Motion that report number GM 02-2309 cash and investment status January 2023 be received as information. Moved by Jerry, seconded by Gord. Comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Financial summary. Motion that the financial statements for the period ending January 31st, 2023 be approved. Moved by, thank you, Pam. Thank you, Sue. Comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Weighted vote budget. So we got a couple of things to the budget here. So you just kind of bear with us as we kind of roll through. We've got a weighted vote motion here, and then we're going to have the budget come up, and Sonia will be available for questions, and then we actually vote on it in a little bit. So we're doing this just to keep you hopping. What? Okay. So weighted voting budget motion that report number GM 02-2311 weighted vote 2023 budget and general levy be received as information. Moved by Sue, seconded by Pam. Comments or questions? The report is there before you. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, so 11-12, the 2023 budget, which we all went through last meeting. What am I doing here? So just ask if there's any questions on the budget. Is that what I'm doing? Okay, so the budget's going to come up for a vote shortly. I'd ask members of the board, have you got any comments or questions on the budget at this point? Sonia's available, of course, to save us. Okay. Okay, so can I've got nothing to put on the floor here. Okay, thank you. That's confusing, right? All right, so we're going to move right along then to general business. Report of the audit committee. So we had a meeting of the audit committee, but there was a question at the audit committee about the statements. And so I was just wondering, Sonia's just going to give us a brief overview of the statement scenario, and then we'll get to the findings of the audit committee. Turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, could I confirm that those remotely are seeing my screen sharing? Great. Okay, this is a little different from in past years, but the audit committee was so excited about my information. They thought maybe the rest of the board, no pressure here to make sure this is exciting for you. And just maybe to speak a little bit about the difference between where we started with our budget and where we ended up in 22. So there's some significant activities to create some significant fluctuations. So the budget was had 32 million in revenue, and we actually achieved 49 million for a 17 million dollar differential. Our expenses were around the 35 million, and we came in at around 31. So for a net result, before we do any of our reserve movements, we had went from budgeting a slight deficit to a strong surplus of 20 million. And after reserve movements and surplus from prior year, we ended in the year with about a 562 bottom line result, which you see is being forwarded into our 2023 budget. And we designate specific uses for that are sort of one-off, not required to be sustainable type expenses. So again, revenues up 16 million, expenses down, net result 20. I'm going to speak to each of these variances in turn. In terms of our revenues, the number one item to highlight is driving this is $15 million in land sale proceeds. We purposely do not budget for this amount because of the regulatory requirements and permissions that we go through. These amounts do get placed into reserve, so there's no decisions that need to be made immediately in terms of a budget exercise, and they have a provincial interest. So that was a big one. The next largest one would have been the strong outcome in our parks that were substantially more than budget. We were but somewhat conservative in the budget at 9 million, considering that 2021 actual was about 9.5 million, and we thought that was a banner year. But as you can see, we just set new records there in our parks. Thirdly, the next variance would be less funding in other provincial funding. And that was driven primarily by timing in our WECI projects. We have some significant dollars set aside for flood forecasting and warning floodplain mapping projects that we have revenue set aside for that. And that project's being somewhat deferred. It relates to working with the Army Corps and the state. So that money is protected. And similarly, the last variance was in our special project with wastewater optimization. We had a staff vacancy that gets deferred and has special project funding. We also were significantly under in revenue with other municipal revenue, and that related to the rural water quality grants that we give out, and that's just timing. That money again remains set aside. Some smaller items to highlight is our planning revenue did exceed budget. We were a little bit conservative. I'm going to speak to that at the end as one of the highlights for the year, what happened in planning. In nursery, we are significantly, we were somewhat higher because of, this is also where we place timber sales, and we had about 150,000 in timber sales revenue. We do put that into reserves, and that's sort of an unknown from year to year. So, and finally, our investment income has surpassed budgets. As we saw what happened to interest rates during the second half of the year, so we profited substantially. And I'll have another small comment about that later. So yeah, there were the major things were here, our parks and our land sales. So now moving on to explaining why our expenses are 4 million less. Basically, we can look at this in terms of three categories: what's happened with operating, capital, and special. And again, I'm going to speak to each of these in turn. The biggest driver here was deferral of capital projects. In terms of our special projects listing, the differences here that I would highlight again in flood forecasting and warning, just as I mentioned that revenues were down, this is where we had some deferral of our floodplain mapping projects. And the second significant one was we had set aside $500,000 in the budget towards a building of the new nature center at Guelph Lake, and that project has not commenced yet. So next we'll look at capital budget, which was down 2.2. And primarily within this, we look at our water control structures. That's the timing related to WECI projects and just mostly timing, but there are some projects that got put off, and we can go add them to subsequent years to funding requests with the province, so we don't lose those opportunities. And conservation areas was down substantially. The biggest real driver there is, again, we have the large project to do the Brant workshop, and that did commence, but it still has lots of work in the following year. And finally, we have our operating budget that we were under by 800,000. And there's a lot going on here with all our different program areas. And the way I want to tackle speaking to you about the significant variances that I've highlighted here is you get your reports monthly, and we always talk about our programs in terms of whether it's compensation and benefits, administrative costs, other operating, insurance, and property. Those are the main categories. And I'll just say right at the front as I go through, I think you'll notice the significant impact that there were wage savings due to vacancies, or our ability to leverage our staff, get some special projects funding, and save in terms of where they were budgeted. So the first one under water resources and planning of the almost $300,000 positive variance, 240,000 was for wages and 50,000 for other type expenses. With regards to water control structures, again, 100,000 of that was wages and 50,000.
Excuse me, why is there some back sound?
I heard it too.
There, you fixed it.
It's fixed. Okay, thank you. In terms of resource planning, again, about 90,000 of that was staff savings, again, vacancies, and 30,000 other expenses, which was primarily underspending in legal costs. And we have a mandate that if we don't spend our legal budget in planning, we put it into our enforcement reserve. On conservation services, we were 135,000 under. 55,000 of that is wages, 50,000 of that is other, and 20,000 is admin. And this savings was primarily driven by the ability that we had some special projects. We could use that, like we were even able to get an admin charge back on one of the special projects, which we don't always get. So that was really the special projects helped drive the positive variance there, finding another source of funding for some of the expenses. Under communications, the variance of 170 is 130,000 wages. That was a staff position vacancy, 25,000 for other, and 15,000 for admin. Conservation, corporate services is the one area where we had a negative variance. And that was really driven by the fact that if you recall, we returned the shoes funding this year to the ministry. They assessed us for interest of almost $250,000. For accounting purposes, that has to be treated as an expense in the current year because there's not the certainty that we will get it back. But we have both an appeal process in progress there, and we have requested relief from that interest charge, and we have not heard back regarding that. So we expensed it here, but we also funded it out of reserves in 2022 as per board motion. In conservation lands, we're 280 under, 150 of that's almost half of that was for wage savings, 125 for other expenses, and 20 for admin, and then insurance was a negative variance of 25. For property rentals, we had a $340,000 positive variance. Only 55,000 of that was for wages, so this one sort of didn't follow the trend of the others. There was 310,000 for other expenses. And what those primarily related to was the cottage lot program. There was almost about 175,000. And that's typical because we have a general provision for roads and hazard trees. Maybe I'll.
Sorry, I don't mean to-
That's good.
Do you have a question? Doug? I thought Okay, I apologize. I thought he was waving. He couldn't-
No, not me, sorry.
Okay, thanks.
So as I said, for property rentals, there was 300,000 in other, but 175 was that for cottage lot program. And we put that aside into the cottage lot reserve for things like their roads, because there's ups and fluctuations in roads, or trees maintenance are the two items that can fluctuate from year to year. And there was also 100,000 in the budget to do demolitions, which are funded out of reserves, but those demolitions were deferred. So those cost savings affected reserves. Hydro production was up 150 in spending. It was just some repairs that had to be done on our turbines, and we only budget for sort of regular maintenance, but we use reserves or drawdowns or use extra surplus to fund that. And finally, of course, in our conservation areas, you would have seen a corresponding increase in costs as a result of the increase in activity. Mr. Chair, I wanted to talk about reserves a little after, but maybe if there's any questions on the expense side, I can.
Are there any questions from the board members at this time? Jerry, go ahead.
Thanks, Sonia, for the report so far. Through the chair, you mentioned a number of projects that have been deferred, and perhaps we have had reports on these, but is there some of them going to be done this year or in coming years? Again, we may have those reports, but maybe they're forthcoming. But just on the deferrals, can you speak to them?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the water control structures, there are reports on capital expenditures in the future, and maybe they can also focus on subsequent reports on types of things that might have been deferred, so we can achieve that via that. And as relates to the park projects, we can try to highlight those in our financial forecast reports as they arise.
Good. All right. David?
For the, oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. I want to ask a question about a revenue. Just if, and you're showing for the 2023 budget revenue, self-generated 49%, almost 50%, and government grants 6%. I think that government grants will be provincial and federal. And you said we see $900,000 offset there, mainly because of the deferral of certain projects. But the 6% of other government grants, I think if we went back 25 years in time and we looked at the budget then, and then we said to the board then, next year, I want the GRCA to self-generate 50% of your income. I think everybody would have thought, that's crazy. But over time, that's what's happened, right? We see other government grants falling. And the self-generating obviously had to pick up. I think municipalities have also picked up. But I want to ask the government grants of 6%, do we see that continuing that downward trend? And I'm asking in light of who we all have in the room today.
That's crystal ball stuff. Did you want to say something? Okay, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So at this point in time, we are anticipating that it's going to stay constant. When we presented at the pre-budget for the province, we asked that they maintain the existing funding, particularly for the flood management program. In terms of the source protection as well, the province has indicated that they're going to maintain it. So as far as we know right now, majority of those committed grants are still going to be funded in the next year.
Maybe I could pitch in from the federal side that many of the grants that we've announced are multi-year grants. The tree planting was mentioned earlier, and that comes through the 2 billion trees program. I'm assuming possibly through Forest Ontario, which is a 3-year program. So I think there are commitments that take us out multi-years, and hopefully there's more commitments coming in the budget that we'll be hearing about in the next month or so.
Thanks, Lloyd. That's Lloyd Longfield MP from Guelph. Did you have something further, David? Go ahead. Do we need those slides up? Go ahead, David. Oh, is that me again?
It's not a bad picture to have up, that revenue chart, but I just want to say the 6%, and I appreciate, Samantha, your answer. We anticipate, which almost sound like we hope, and hope is a bad strategy. But I think there is a good argument that the provincial and the federal government should be at least maintaining, if not increasing, their contribution to CAs, especially ours, because we are in a high growth area. We didn't designate it a high growth area. That was the province. It's the federal government that is bringing in, lots of newcomers to Canada. So they are the ones that are forcing us to respond to protect our watershed. And unfortunately, that costs money. So my argument, Mr. Chair, would be at least to our MPs, to our MPPs, please at least maintain that funding, if not increase it.
Appreciate that, David. And just so you're aware, I mean, the board lobbies all levels of government all the time. It's part of the reasons we have these relationships. They have their fiscal pressures. We have our fiscal pressures. But I think just by virtue of the folks that are in the room, we know we get a lot of support from the province and the feds. There have been some shifting items at the provincial level, but rest assured, if there's money or grants or things that this board is getting, we pursue them, and we pursue them in a very professional manner, but we're always in front of the ministers when we can be, so forth. It's a good point, and we continue to pursue that. And in the big scheme of things, we're all looking to keep the grants going, but we know we've got some very good support from our other levels of government. But thank you. Okay, now I'm completely lost.
Mr. Chair, yes, I had a couple more slides.
Okay, thank you.
I just thought I'd highlight what happened with our reserves at year end, that we overall increased them by 18 million. And again, the real drivers there were the land sale proceeds and the conservation area surplus, which we put in. Again, a strong interest showing. There was $700,000 interest put into reserves. It might be interesting to know that last year the reserves earned on average about 1.4% interest, and this year it was over 2%. And that will increase for next year. We've got some good things invested. We put 450,000 into the transition reserve, 200,000 into the forest reserve. I mentioned the revenue was extra. Most of that all goes into the reserve. And flood forecasting and warning structures, if we underspend, that's recommended with the capital and that, we protect the funding and we put that into the reserve. The significant items taken out would have been 340,000 for our motor pool, which again is basically planned for because if we had strong capital expenditures, we fund those through reserves to manage those. As I said earlier, we determined that the shoes funding, the interest charge would be funded by the personnel reserve. We had some mapping projects where we have a commitment to cost share that 50% special project funding, which is mostly federal, and then using our the land sale reserves. It's an eligible expense from which to utilize the land sale reserve, so we use that. And our computer equipment reserve, again, just timing of, not timing, but just the way expenses versus our chargeback formula works. So if I just had to take all of that and synthesize it as what is the highlights I'd like you to take away, is certainly the strong showing in our parks, the excess revenue. Yes, expenses are higher, which would be expected. I mentioned how capital spending was deferred and that we put that money into the reserves. And secondly, I think just worth mentioning our planning revenue. Even though we came in, our revenue was higher, we were a bit conservative in our planning revenue, but we actually achieved last year's actual. So we were, I guess we see a bit of a, I don't know if this is a plateau or a trend. We always sort of say it's hard to find trends in the planning revenue, but it had been sort of increasing over the years. And this was a year that was very busy, was on par with the prior year. And we were just slightly over budget, about 150,000. And as I mentioned, that was some vacancy savings. Just as a perspective, that overall budget for planning is $2.4 million. And we transfer legal savings into reserve. And the other two highlights, as I mentioned, as I walked through it, that a lot of the cost savings were were related to compensation and benefits, and those were driven by vacancies and our special and the ability to offset costs through special project funding, and not to lose sight of our shoes event and how that is transpiring. And through me, Mr. Chair, that's the ends my presentation.
All right, thank you. Oh, good information. And I think for the members of the audit committee that had some of those questions, I think that should probably cover it. Just want to see everybody. I think, John, you had some of those thoughts. Did that kind of cover some of your questions from the audit committee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate Sonia's presentation, and I hope that the board benefited from it. The audit committee certainly did. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks, Sonia, appreciate it. So we're going to move on to the audit committee. We have a motion that the report of the audit committee of the Grand River Conservation Authority be received and approved. Can I get a mover for that? Moved by John, seconded by Ken. Are there any comments or questions? Or Guy, did you want to say anything at all? You're good. Guy is our chair of audit committee. We've had a good audit as usual, clean, everything moving along, everything ship shape, right? Okay, so I'm going to call a question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So we have a couple of motions coming out of that. First motion is that the terms of reference for the audit committee dated February 25th, 2022 be approved and implemented with the approval date of February 2023. I'm just going to roll these all together. Yeah. Put them all into one motion. Do you want separate ones? Separate? Okay. Can I get a mover for that? Moved by Pam, seconded by Sue. That's first motion. All in favor? Comments, questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Second motion, that the gauge reserve, am I saying that right? That the gauge reserve be increased by 45,000, and that the forestry reserve be increased by 70,000, and that the master plans reserve be increased by 90,000, and that the nature center reserves be increased by 35,000 to be distributed equally between the apps, General, L'Oreal, Taquaniqua, and Shade Mills reserves. Taquania. Oh, sorry, Taquania. Okay. Can I get a mover for that, please? Moved by Christine, seconded by Pam. Comments or questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to approval of the financial statements. Motion that the financial statements of the Grand River Conservation Authority as at December 31st, 2022, and the report of the auditors thereon be received, approved, and placed on file, and that copies be made available to all member municipalities, Grand River Conservation Authority members, in the Ontario Ministries of Natural Resources and Forestry, and the Environment, Conservation, and Parks. Moved by Brian, seconded by Sean. Comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Appointment of auditors. Motion that KPMG Chartered Professional Accountants be appointed as auditors for the year ending December 31st, 2023 at a fee not to exceed $41,837. Moved by Sandy, seconded by Mike Devine. Comments, questions? All in favor? Carried. So now we're into the budget. Yes? Okay. So I have a motion here. So just so everybody's clear, this is a recorded vote on the budget. It's just part of the procedure that we have. So I will put the motion on the floor and then you'll do the vote. Okay. Motion that the 2023 budget of the Grand River Conservation Authority of $35,426,690 be approved, and that the member municipalities be assessed for payment of matching levy $449,688, non-matching levy $11,568,000. Nope, $11,568,312. Capital levy $950,000. Total general levy $12,680,000, and that each member municipality share of the 2023 general levy be calculated using modified current value assessment. Probably the last time the budget was 35,000 was when Warren was walking through Rockwood, right? Okay. We good to, okay, sorry, can you move her to put that on the floor? Moved by Brian, second by Pam. Okay, it's a recorded vote, so get ready.
It's it is not alphabetical, so I will call every member's name, and if you could tell me that if you are in favor or opposed, please. Doug Craig,
In favor?
Mike Devine, Jim Erb,
In favor?
Can you hear us, Gord?
In favor?
thank you. Colleen James is absent. Sandy Shantz. Natasha Salonen,
In favor.
Terry Williams,
In favor.
Pam Wolf, Daniel Lawrence,
In favor?
Ro-
Is that Rob Shurton? I'm not sure.
yes, please.
Yes, I'm present and I'm in favor.
Thank you.
Can you please speak up?
Sorry. John Challenor,
In favor?
Alex Wilson,
In favor.
Bruce Banbury, Gino Caputo,
In favor?
Kevin Davis, I believe he is absent. Christine Billings,
In favor.
Ken Yi Chu,
In favor.
Guy Guardhouse,
In favor.
Lisa Hearn,
In favor.
Jerry Smith, Sean Waters,
In favor.
Chris White,
In favor?
Brian Coleman, David Miller. 100% of the members present have voted in favor.
All right, thank you. There's another budget. So now staff can get out there and begin to do all the good work that they do. So thank you for that. Appreciate the support from the board. Moving along. So for those in municipalities, we all know we get it's kind of a housekeeping item where, we get approval to borrow if required. We have a motion here that's about 7 pages long. So I'm not going to read it. Okay, it's page 7 and 8 for those who want to look it up, but it's basically the housekeeping gives the ability to borrow if necessary. If anybody's not comfortable with that, I will read it. Other than that, can I get a motion? I'm just going to read the first piece just to get us on the game. Motion, whereas it may be necessary for the Grand River Conservation Authority, herein called the authority, to borrow money on an interim basis to meet the authority's financial obligations while awaiting payment of levies by participating municipalities designated as such under the Conservation Act. So can I get a mover for that, please? Moved by Sue, seconded by Bruce. Comments or questions?
Chris, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Christine.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I was just wondering, why don't we just borrow internally then? Because it says that we would go out to the bank.
Bank of Guelph.
Bank of Guelph.
Mr. Chair, we've never accessed or applied this rule. It's just been something that we've had just in case, and it would probably be more like a line of credit if there was just some timing, but we generally, like I said, we would not have to probably go to this line of credit. We would have cash sources that are liquid and we could use, but it's historically been passed just in case, I guess.
This is just when the municipalities are late on their payment?
It could be whatever circumstances happen to arise, maybe some.
But the reason why I'm asking the question is I'm assuming there is a payment schedule for municipalities. So if every municipality is on time, but we are the ones that have the cash flow issue, then why would we charge the municipalities interest?
We haven't charged the municipalities interest. We have a payment plan and they do pay on time. And in fact, if they wanted to slightly alter the payment plan, there's nothing to prevent the authority from considering that and allowing something. it has been a non-issue.
Okay. I believe that it's a non-issue. It's just that in the clauses, it does speak to interest. And that's why I brought the issue up, because I didn't understand.
So this is the standard thing that your municipality passes every year, and so do we. It's an emergency fallback position. I don't think we've ever used it. I don't know anybody who has, but if we ever ended up in an emergency crunch situation, we had to go out Monday and get some money, this gives you that flexibility. And I'm not sure, I don't know if it's in the act, but we pass it every year, but it's never been used. So appreciate the question, but I think it's an absolute fail-safe position.
No, that's fine, Chris. It was just, if you look at the last two clauses, that's why I had the questions, because it's charging municipalities interest. That's all.
We just build that in, I suppose, just in case. Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, no problem. Did we call the question? Okay. I got to move in a second. Sue and somebody else. Okay, any further questions? Call the question, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. All right, we're moving on to committees. So we have a couple of committees we just need to appoint some folks to officially at the AGM here. First one is the appointment of the audit committee. Motion that the following members be appointed to the audit committee until the next annual general meeting, chair and vice chair plus 5 others. And those 5 others are?
The current committee or the outgoing committee is Guy Guardhouse as chair. Chris and Sue as chair and vice chair are automatically on it. Ryan Coleman, Sean Waters, John Challenor, and Pam Wolf.
And everybody's name will stand. Can I get a mover for this, please? Moved by Sue, seconded by Bruce. Comments or questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. There's a second one we have here, 14.2. We haven't used this committee for years, and we know the province and the feds like us to streamline. So what we're going to do, it's basically an ad hoc committee. It's a special recognition committee. So we're just going to put that in abeyance. Should we need this committee, we'll appoint the members. So that committee exists, but we're not going to appoint members since it hasn't been used for years, unless there's objection to that. Okay, moving on to 14.3, appointment of Conservation Ontario Council representative. Motion that the chair and the chief administrative officer be appointed as members of Conservation Ontario Council, and that the deputy chief administrative officer and secretary treasurer be appointed as alternate member of the Conservation Ontario Council. Mover for that, please. Moved by Sean, seconded by John. Comments, questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Confirmation bylaw. Motion that the Grand River Authority Administrative Bylaw 1, 2023 be confirmed as approved at the meeting of the general membership held on January 27th, 2023. The mover for that, please. Moved by Brian, seconded by Mike. Comments or questions? That is carried. Other business from board members? Okay, Sue, go ahead.
Thank you. Just through you, the chair. I always thought there was a group selected that would go through the grant and select the grants. Do we appoint that group later on? Because I know I've said on
Yeah,
that.
that's the Guelph Foundation Board that does the grant piece.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a board here that, because we used to sit in the boardroom and
Yeah.
select.
I know what you're talking about. I don't know.
So the conservation grants that go out to the public.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So those are awarded through the foundation. We used to have the special recognition committee that would participate in that. Quite a few years ago, that stopped, because that was when we had the watershed awards as well as the water forum.
I'm fine with this stopping.
Okay.
I just want to know if I still had to be on it. Thank you.
You're just looking for a grant. Okay. So that's it. I want to thank you all for coming to our AGM today.
Oh, hold on, Chris. Can I
Yeah.
speak? Just a quick one here for what's really important. Hockey.
Certainly.
Hockey. Well, we got everybody in the watershed. I just want to congratulate and Mayor Davis and the city of Brantford with securing the newly Brantford Bulldogs for next year. The Civic Center lies near the Grand River, and hopefully if there's any renovations, everything, we'll be totally supportive of the city of Brantford with the next 3 years with their Bulldogs and maybe a long time after that. So that's all I wanted to say. I know it's not Grand River conservation business, but I think that's important.
You get one of those a year, Dan. No, go ahead.
On behalf of the city of Brantford, I thank you for that. A lot of hard work went into this, and we're certainly excited, as is the community. And you are right. We do sit on the grant, and it's certainly going to be something special. So thank you very much, and pleasure to be on here with you folks today.
All right, thank you. I just, without going crazy here, does anybody actually have any comments you want to make before we get off? Say hello, goodbye, any of that? If not, you can keep it till next year. That'll work. All right, so I need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Sue, seconded by Pam. All in favor? We have adjourned. Thank you for coming up virtually. Appreciate you being here. That's great. And thank you, everybody in the room. There's some refreshment in the back, and we'll see you later. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Chris.
Been a pleasure.